let's speak to the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid. Thank you for coming in, Health Secretary.
Good morning.
How many cases of Omicron do we know of in the UK?
We've got 2 confirmed cases at this point in time. And what we've done is that everyone will know, because of the decisions that we've made over the summer, the success of our booster programme, we've made huge progress against COVID-19. And no one wants to see that put at risk. And that is why the moment we learned about Omicron and the potential threat it poses, we didn't hesitate to act. We've taken swift action, I think, in a proportionate way, because the strategy of this is to buy time, to give our scientists time to assess this variant, because there's still a lot of significant uncertainty, but also to put in place some mitigants against the potential threat. So that is why on Thursday I set out the 6 countries we're adding to the travel red list from Southern Africa. We added 4 more yesterday. Anyone arriving from those countries will now have to hotel quarantine. And then yesterday, when we had the 2 confirmed cases, one in Essex, the other in Nottingham, we set out further actions, and those are, very quickly, we're requiring that anyone that arrives from abroad, wherever they are coming from, to self-isolate until they get a negative PCR test result. We are also requiring that if anyone is a close contact of someone that is suspected to have this new variant, then they will be asked to self-isolate for 10 days. We will be requiring face masks in shops and public transport. And the other thing that still remains hugely important, but I think it's fair to say now more important than it was before, is our vaccination programme. We know that vaccines work. Yes, this new variant, they may make it less effective or not, but the vaccines work. They are our first form of defence, and that is why I've also asked our expert advisors on vaccines, called JCVI, to give me very quick advice on boosting our booster programme, and I expect to get that advice imminently. And this is all about acting swiftly in a proportionate and balanced way to protect the progress that we have made.
You're still placing a big bet on the success of the vaccination programme, and that's clear. Let's talk a bit about some of the add-ons that the Prime Minister talked about yesterday, and starting with the return of the masks. They're compulsory on London transport, but the Evening Standard and other surveys tell us that, in truth, we've now got to a place where many of the millions who take the tube every day, for example, just don't wear them. And anybody who experiences that, I take it pretty much every day, will know that the discipline isn't there. The TfL, Transport for London, tell us that just 108 people of those millions have been removed from the underground for not wearing a mask. I mean, how are you going to enforce this new ban? Well,
first, I'd say, Trevor, I think that over the last few days, and of course this has been very fast-moving, I think people would have been able to see and understand the concerns around this new variant. And they will be concerned perhaps not just for themselves, their friends and family, and want to know that the government is taking proportionate action. So I think that will encourage people in any way to listen and think about some of the new measures and take them very seriously. And by, I think, doing it in this proportionate way, where it's for public transport, it's for retail outlets, I think that's the right level of response on masks, and it will be by government regulation. And that means that I think people will take it seriously.
But my point is, everybody in London knows that it is mandatory to wear a mask. But by my reckoning, and I've been testing out this week, about a third of people completely ignore it, and nobody throws them off the tube. Just 108 people in the last 3 or 4 months have been taken off transport because they weren't wearing a mask. How are you going to make this stick?
This is really about protecting the progress that we have made. And now you said
I get that, but how
you said in your estimation about a third of people don't wear it. You've done that this week, but I would think that you probably haven't been taking those soundings since people have begun to understand more about this new variant and why the government has thought that these new measures are appropriate. So I do think people will take this more seriously, and I think that will apply to public transport, it will apply in shops, it will be a regulation, as it has been before, but it's important, I think, to act in a proportionate way and also in a temporary way. I hope this is something that we can remove within weeks, but I do think in terms of making progress, we want life to go back towards normal. But at this point in time, given what we know about this variant and the expert advice that has been received, I think it is right to take some proportionate and balanced actions.
OK, I get that the idea of yesterday's announcement was, if you like, to shock people into realising that we're in a new situation. But wouldn't it have made more sense to do something a bit more dramatic in terms of actually instructing changes in behaviour? So, for example, there's no social distancing mandate. There's no masks in pubs. There's no working from home requirement. Last week, when we spoke, I said that you were adopting a risky strategy by not being a bit tougher. This week, I know that what you're saying may feel like resolve to you, but I think to some people, it may just feel like, OK, they're waving a flag, but in truth, nothing much has changed.
Well, I think that let's first turn to those other types of measures that we've had in the past, and you've just talked again about whether it's work from home or other social distancing measures. We know now that those measures, those types of measures, they do carry a very heavy price. They both economically, socially, in terms of non-COVID health outcomes, such as impact on mental health, for example. So if one was to make decisions like that, they'd have to be done very, very carefully. And we're not there yet. We're nowhere near that. And the reason is because we just got to step back and take a proportionate and balanced response. And what we have done by, first of all, targeting travel from those countries where we know there's a particular risk from this variant. Secondly, by asking people, all travellers, to take a test and wait for a negative result. I think that is proportionate. And what we've said on face masks, and also boosting the booster programme. Now, I'm still waiting for final advice on that, but focusing on the vaccinations and these other measures, I think this is the right response. Now, of course, there will be people out there, of course, that will say, look, why didn't you do this and why didn't you do that? The job of government is to look at the facts that we have and make a decision that is proportionate and balanced, and that's exactly what we have done.
But Secretary of State, what you want to do, you've already told me that, is shock people into realising how serious this is. Your critics will say what you describe as proportionate and balanced feels like complacent.
Well, in this job, you have critics, coming from every corner, and so that is not something that I think that should drive government policy. What we should be driven by is the facts, and as I say quite openly, that with this new variant, there's a lot that we don't know about it, and that is why we need to buy some time to assess it and learn more. And as we learn more, we can respond appropriately. One
of the things that we do know about this is that we don't understand whether the vaccines that we currently have will stop it. Isn't that another piece of evidence that really you're taking this a bit too lightly?
No, not at all. I think what we do know at this point is that given the number of mutations in this new variant, there's reason to think that it may be, and I stress the word may, that this variant may turn out to make our vaccines less effective. It may not. We just don't know enough. But as a precautionary measure, what we are doing, these measures, but also turning to the vaccination programme, even if this variant turns out, and it's an if, even if it turns out to make vaccines less effective, it might be a small impact. It may not, but the point is that the vaccines are still going to give you more protection than otherwise, and that is why the booster programme is so important. We've done over 17 million boosts now across the UK. I think some 36% of the population over the age of 12. That's more than any other country in Europe, and it remains a vital part of our defence. And please, can I just say to any one of your viewers, if you're eligible for a vaccine, whether it's your first dose, your second dose, but certainly your booster dose, please play your part and take up that offer of a vaccine.
When this all started, the Prime Minister became very fond of saying, I'm going to level with you. Is it time to level with us and come clean about this? It's going to be like this every winter now, isn't it? With new variants, new possibilities. We're going to run out of Greek letters. Is this the future?
I don't think so. I mean, I think, look, will there be more variants? I think there will be, almost certainly, especially when most of the world is not vaccinated against this, sadly. And that is something I think every country needs to step up and do more. We're playing our part, but we need more countries to play their part. But we will have to learn to live with COVID. We will never defeat it. We have to learn to live with it. We have to learn to live with it as we have learned to live with flu. Of course, it is not flu, and we need to learn more about it. But we have many more measures and tools in the box today that we didn't have even this time last year. The vaccines, the antivirals, we understand more about it. So we will learn to live with this. But at this time, just given the emergence of this new variant and what we do know about it, I think it is right to respond in this way.
I haven't got time during this interview to list the number of times we've been reassured and then things turned round. We had to do something a bit more. We have to have a few more restrictions. What are we going to see by Christmas time? Can you reassure us, can you guarantee that we are going to be able to see our families, our loved ones, we're going to be still going to be able to travel at Christmas time?
Well, you asked me for guarantees, and I think it's fair to say that the nature of this pandemic is that it would be irresponsible to make guarantees. But what I can tell you is that the actions that we've taken, these proportionate and balanced actions, will buy us time. It will give us those precious weeks, certainly, that our scientists need to assess this variant. And as for you asked about Christmas, I think people should continue with their plans as normal for Christmas. I think it's going to be a great Christmas.
It is not that inspiring when the Prime Minister says, oh, it'll be better than last year. Last year was pretty drab. Let's just get one thing at least clear. When are the new rules going to be coming in?
The face mask, well, the red listing has already happened. The face mask rules are planned to come in on Tuesday. The measures around the border, we have always, I think, rightly taken a four-nation approach across the UK. And so we're working with our partners in the UK, and we will bring them in as soon as possible.
I talked to Professor Barry Shube from South Africa, their chief government advisor. He was very cross at the way that his country and others in South Africa have been treated by us and other rich countries. We're not distributing the vaccine. And by the way, on top of that, adding insult to injury, we're stopping travelling. Have we gone over the top?
No, I think the response has been the right one. Is a balanced response. But I will also say I think South Africa has acted in an exemplary way. It's a great partner of the UK on COVID and many other issues. I think it has done absolutely the right thing to share the information it has with the world in much the same way the UK did when do you remember the Alpha variant? We shared everything we had with the rest of the world because we wanted to help. And South Africa has taken a similar approach, and they've done the right thing.
All right, let's talk about the other horrid news this week, deaths in the Channel. Let's not go over the detail of that, but what we're going to do about it. Was it a misjudgment on the part of the Prime Minister to publish his letter to the French president?
No, it wasn't, and I'll explain why. But first, can I say this is what has happened is absolutely tragic, this terrible loss of life. And I think it's just a reminder to everyone, whether it's in the UK and France, that we all need to be doing what we can to break the business model of these people smugglers. They are ultimately responsible for this. And that does mean, of course, working closely with our friend France. And I think what the Prime Minister set out in his letter, the sort of 5 points of action, whether it's on joint patrols or intelligence sharing, these issues, I think they are all the right issues, and we should be working together on them.
You, as a government, are basically saying that you have to stop these boats. If you can't be sure who's in these boats, what is the actual policy here? Do you want to stop these boats crossing, or is it the case that what you want to do is to make sure that people are safe? I mean, what's the actual policy that you're adopting? Because it doesn't seem to be clear what you're really trying to do here.
I think our policy is very clear, and that is these boats must stop. The people smugglers are taking advantage of these very vulnerable people from poor parts of the world, misleading them, sticking them in these, sometimes you can't even call them boats, and putting their lives in danger. This is a criminal enterprise, and for that reason, it must stop. Now, of course, we can't just do it on our own. We do need the cooperation of the French. And again, you asked me about the PM's letter, and I think what the PM has set out, those are exactly the kind of things that we need to do. And I hope the French will take that and work with us.
But if the point is to save these people's lives, why isn't the government focusing more on more legitimate routes for refugees rather than putting people in a situation where, OK, they may be legal, but they're going to do this? And shouldn't you be focusing on making sure that they have more legitimate routes by which they can prove or not prove their asylum status?
And it's a great question, and that is exactly what the government does. In fact, the UK should be very proud of the sanctuary that we provide.
Why is there 25,000 people who've made this trip?
I'll tell you that actually, since 2015, I think we have resettled the UK through the refugee programmes. We've resettled over 25,000 people, more than any other country in Europe. When I was Home Secretary, I expanded those programmes. Priti Patel has also expanded those programmes. We should be very proud on the big offer we make to people that are in conflict zones and elsewhere to come to safety, just as we've done in the last few months with Afghan arrivals. It's absolutely the right thing to do. The wrong thing to do is to let these small boats and let these criminal enterprises profit from these people and put these lives in danger. We will never tolerate that, and it is right that we do everything we can to prevent it.
I understand the words, but let's look at the numbers. They are going up and up and up. Since you were Home Secretary, they've gone from a couple of thousand a year to 8,000 to 10,000 a year, and now this year it'll be upwards of 25,000. Whatever you say you're doing, the reality is more and more people are coming in through this route, risking their lives, as well as creating illegal landings. You haven't got enough offshore base through which to process them. You haven't got a relationship with the French. I mean, Priti Patel doesn't even get invited to meetings anymore. The French won't have them back. What is your plan to solve this?
Well, I think that the Home Secretary is doing a lot. So, for example,
But as you just said, it's a thing we have to do in cooperation with others. And she doesn't even get invited to the discussion to solve it.
Well, part of it, of course, is about cooperation, and that is a big, important part of it. Part of it is things that we can do domestically. So the Nationality and Borders Bill that we have in front of Parliament now will make this, dealing with this challenge easier than it is today. It will mean that, for example, that if you are someone that comes from a safe country like France and then somehow gets to the UK and then claims asylum, that we will first understand that you're more likely to have been an economic migrant, because otherwise you would have claimed asylum in the first safe country you were in. And I think it is important to have these changes in law. And so these measures are being taken forward. But at the same time, whatever we can do, we still need to have cooperation with our French friends. And I think reaching out to them and suggesting proactive suggestions around whether it's joint patrolling, whether it's a returns agreement, I think these are all the right things to do.
Look, I'm not making a stupid pun here, but there is some sense that the government is a bit adrift at sea here. This week, Prime Minister lost his place in a big speech. He sung the praises of a cartoon pig. He saw his majority cut from 80 to 26 on one of your key policies, social care. And he triggered a diplomatic row with the French when we absolutely, as you've just been telling me, need their cooperation. Do you still think Boris Johnson is an election winner?
Yes, absolutely. And let me tell you why. Because we are delivering on our promises. Over that same time frame you just talked about, we have set out an investment programme of £96 billion in rail, the biggest this country has ever seen, absolutely transformative. We took through Parliament the biggest reform to social care ever, with the most generous means testing, capping costs ever. That's something that all governments of the past have tried to avoid, and this government is taking on head-on, delivering on our promise. And when it comes, again, where we started our conversation today, when it comes to dealing with this pandemic, we have made huge progress. Hospitalizations have been falling in recent weeks. We are making huge progress. We have the most successful booster programme in Europe. So I think that this is a government government that delivers on its promises and deals with the challenges they face.
So to all those grumbling Conservative backbenchers who are saying, oh, maybe it's time for the Prime Minister to start his next career, you're saying he's going to be here and he will lead us into the next election?
Yes.
Health Secretary, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.